Welcome to music lesson number 6. We're going to learn another new warm-up this week, of course, and it's going to sound tricky at first, but once you see the words and do it a couple times, I think you'll catch on to it pretty quickly. We're going to have so many warm-ups to do next year, we're not going to know what to do with ourselves. So here's how it goes slowly. B by B by bow, B by Bicky Bicky by Bicky Bow, Bicky by Bow B, Bicky by Bow B. And I'm going to sing it slow, and then I'm going to play the video for you, and he's going to sing it faster. All right, so B by Bow, B by Bicky Bicky by Bicky Bow, Bicky by Bow B, Bicky by Bow B. Pretty easy. I'll do it one more time, and I'm doing it slower than they do it, okay? B by Bow, B by Bicky Bicky by Bicky Bow, Bicky by Bow B, Bicky by Bow B.
This one's always fun. It's a very complicated group of syllables, but once you get it, it's a piece of cake. So say B by B,
B by B,
B by Bow,
B by Bow,
B by Bicky Bicky by Bicky Bow,
B by Bicky Bicky by Bicky Bow,
Bicky by Bow B,
Bicky by Bow B,
Bicky by Bow B.
Bicky by Bicky by Bow B.
It sounds like this when you sing it. Ready and go.
B by B by Bow, B by Bicky Bicky by Bicky Bow, Bicky by Bow B, Bicky by Bow B. B by B by Bow, B by Bicky Bicky by Bicky Bow, Bicky by Bow B, Bicky by Bow B. B by B by Bow, B by Bicky Bicky by Bicky Bow, Bicky by Bow B, Bicky by Bow B. B by B by Bow, B by Bicky Bicky by Bicky Bow, Bicky by Bow B, Bicky by Bow B.
Etc.
Okay, we're going to do a sight singing lesson, but I just want to warn you that I will interrupt it partway through and explain the section of the lesson that I cut out.
Lesson 7. The Staff. Imagine a road. But let's say that you want to walk across that road. You might need a crosswalk. Sometimes a person might step on a line, or that person might step in between a line, or in the space. Now, let's say for a moment that we're going to add some more lines. And let's take a walk across these lines. We're going to walk on a line and in a space. Line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space. Here are all the steps that went on the lines. And here are all the steps that went in the spaces.
But let me just quickly say, they kind of, you saw initially the steps across the road, kind of got into the steps of the staff, indicating going across. So every note that's on the piano, every note that an instrument plays in the orchestra, every note that we sing in choir has a place on the staff, whether it be a line or a space. And when it goes from line to space, line, space, it's going up by step. And when we're sight singing, there will be steps and there will also be intervals, and we'll get into that later. But for now, just know that they refer to the lines as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the spaces as 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't really care about those numbers. I don't think you need to worry about those numbers. Just there's 5 lines and 4 spaces. There's also notes in this space, and there's notes in this space, and there's what we call ledger lines. We won't get into that right now, and so we'll continue with the sight singing video.
But now you might be wondering, what does this matter for singing? Well, knowing those lines and spaces helps us recognize which notes we're looking at. Let's bring back in some solfege to figure out how this works together. This rectangle is a do marker. It is not a note. This is just a rectangle, but it tells us where do goes. So in this case, this do marker tells us that the note that we're going to call do is going to be in space number 1. So if I bring in a note, and this note is in space number 1, then I know that that note is do. If I bring in a few more notes in the same place, those are also going to be do. Just for kicks, let's sing this. If this is do, do, then I would sing do, do, do. Now that might just be the most boring song in the universe, but there you go. That's how we get started. Let's try another one with notes in different places. We're going to leave do in the same place. So for now, it's the first space. And we'll start off with, right, that's probably going to be do. It is, but let's add some different notes this time. How about a note that's up one line, and then the next note's in the space? So notice that we are stepping from a space note to a line note to a space note. So you might figure out that these notes are going to be do, re, and mi. Let's try singing them. Here's do again. Do, do, re, mi. Good. Let's try another one. We're still leaving do in the first space. And so there's our first note again, probably do. And here's our next note. And here's another one. And another one. And one more. So we have 5 notes. Notice that these go up, alternating space, line, space, line, space. Again, those are going to be called steps, and they are going in order. Do, re, mi, fa, and so. And let's try singing through it. Here's do. Do, do, re, mi, fa, so. Awesome. Let's try another one. This time we are going to move do. And if that's a little different, you better get used to it because do can move. And when it moves, everything moves with it. Just follow along and you'll figure it out. So we're going to move do, and this time we're going to put it on the 3rd line. And here comes a note. And notice that this note is also on the 3rd line. So it's probably going to be do. And here's another note and a 3rd note. So even though everything is moved to different places, it still starts on do and it goes up by steps. So it's still going to be do, re, and mi. Let's try singing it. Here's do. Do, do, re, mi. Let's try another one. We're going to move do again. Let's see where it goes this time. Down to the 2nd line. So there's a note that's going to be do, and here are some more. Now we might have mixed it up just a little, only 3 little notes, but let's figure out what they are. The first note is in the same place as our do marker, so that's going to be do. But the 2nd note is on a line 2. There's a skip there. We skipped a note and left one out, so it's not going to be re. That 2nd note is actually going to be mi. The 3rd note comes back down, so it changes directions and goes downward, and it goes from a line to a space. It's going to be re. So, again, these 3 notes are do, mi, and re. A little bit different. Let's sing it and hear what it sounds like. Here's do this time. Do, do, mi, re. Good. All right. Here's another one. We move do again. Now it's in the 2nd space. There's a do note and some more. Okay, so hopefully that pattern that you're looking at looks familiar to you. 5 notes in a row, all going up by steps, alternating space, line, space. So if you're thinking these might just be do, re, mi, fa, and so, you're right. Let's hear what it sounds like. Here's our do marker. Do, do, re, mi, fa, so. Let's put do this time on the 2nd line. And here's some notes for you. And you can tell these ones are really moving around this time. First note, again, is going to be do. Not surprising. We will change that eventually, but okay. 2nd note skips. Now, one hint here. If you see, for example, you see 3 notes in a row here and they go line, line, line. No space notes in between. line, line, line. Then you can think, I'm probably leaving one note out in between each. So the first one's do, skipping re. Mi is going to be here, skipping fa, going on to so. Then these three notes coming down goes line, space, line. So we're not skipping anything. So let's put in our fa and then mi again. All right, and here's our do. Do, do, mi, so, fa, mi. Let's put do down here on the bottom line. There are some notes mixed up again. First note again is going to be do. Second note goes from line to space, the very next note, so that's going to be re. Then we skip space to space, so next will be fa. Then we turn around, go down to mi, and then the last note is do again. Let's sing it. Here's do. Do, do, re, fa, mi, do. Now, finally, let's have a first note that's not do. So we're going to leave do in the same place on the bottom line and bring in a new note. So notice that the first note this time is not do. It's in a different place. Do's here on the first line. Our first note that we're looking at is on the second line. So this is actually going to be mi. So these notes are mi, re, and do in that order. So this is where it gets tricky. If this is do, do, where is the first note? Because it's not do. This part can be really tricky for people. You know the first note is mi, so it can help if you sing up in your head. I'll sing out loud, but it helps if you get to where you don't have to, and you can kind of sing it in your head. That's called audiating. So, do, re, mi, mi. So that's your first note is mi. So let's sing these three notes. Mi, re, do. Awesome. Let's just do one more. I promise this is the last one because you're probably getting tired. So we're going to move do just a hair up to the first space and bring in a note. And notice that it's in the second space, so we've skipped one. So once again, this first note is going to be mi, and then so, fa, re, and do. And those are our notes. Now this is going to be really tricky, and we're going to make this easier. Right now we're showing you the staff. If these patterns you're like, well, I can't read that, we will build you back up to this. So this is an exercise to teach you about the staff today. If you find this to be really simple, then you can plow right on ahead through lessons. A lot of that just depends on your musical background, instruments you might have already played and things like that. So let's just sing through this one. So here's where do is. Do. So you have to find your first note, which is mi. So again, in your head, you can kind of sing do, re, mi. So that's your first note is mi. Now let's try singing this. Mi, so, fa, re, do. Awesome. That lesson taught you a lot of stuff, so congratulations just for getting through it.
So I'm posting this lesson the week of May 4th. Now, I don't know about you, but my family kind of thinks as May 4th as May the 4th be with you, because we're Star Wars fans. So I wanted to share a video that talks about the composer who composes the music for not only Star Wars, but Superman, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, Jaws, big time movies. His name is John Williams. He's changed movie music. He's an incredible composer, and I wanted you to know a little bit about him. So may the 4th be with you as you watch this video.
Music is representative of a film's theme and, at its deepest core, is the essence. That's why a score and the composer behind it is so crucial. With a wave of their baton, a composer is conducting both the orchestra and the audience, guiding and evoking their emotions. Composers use music as a universal language to convey tension, love, or awe, making the story being told on a lifeless screen come alive.
Life, finds a way.
In all of cinematic history, there is no one more capable or famed for striking moviegoers with such powerful scores than John Williams. John Williams was born and raised in New York in 1932 and eventually moved to Los Angeles with his family in 1948. In LA, he studied composition with Mario Castelnuovo Tedesco, regarded as one of the greatest guitar composers of the 20th century. After a few years serving in the US Air Force, Williams returned to New York and attended the Juilliard School. He studied piano under Madame Rosina Levine, a mentor of some of the best pianists of the mid-20th century. During his time in New York, Williams also recorded as a jazz pianist in clubs and assisted with recordings. Finally, Williams moved back to Los Angeles and began scoring for film and television. I guarantee that Williams has composed the score for at least one movie in your top 10 favorites. We have him to thank for the iconic music behind Jaws, Star Wars, Superman, E.T., Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, and so many more. And you may notice that many of Williams' most notable scores are for Steven Spielberg films. Spielberg approached Williams in 1974 after hearing the score for The Reavers. He says, "When I heard The Reavers, I said, my God, this guy must be 80 years old. I thought, here's some guy who is 80 years old who maybe wrote his greatest scores of his life. And I went to find who he was, and I met this young guy named John Williams, and I was amazed." The movie was made in 1969, meaning Williams was only 37 at the time. Spielberg then asked Williams to compose the score for his directorial debut called The Sugarland Express, launching a partnership that has lasted over 40 years. After The Sugarland Express, the next project Spielberg and Williams worked on together was Jaws. Williams says that when he first played the shark's theme for Spielberg, the director thought he was kidding and laughed. But Spielberg couldn't have been more far off. This theme is one of the most daunting and terrifying pieces of music created for the screen. Those two notes have become practically synonymous with sharks and are ingrained in our cultural conscience as the approach of danger. The best way to understand how impactful Williams' score is for the film is by watching a scene without the music.
Come on, Hooper! Come on! Hurry up! Tie it on!
Now.
Without the music, the film is just not as scary. You don't feel the urge to yell at the screen, "Get out of the water!"
Come on, Hooper! Come on! Hurry up! Tie it on!
Jaws' theme is also incredibly important to the audience, as it lets us know what's happening. Upon first hearing the notes, we know the shark is near. And when we hear those notes speed up, we know the shark is getting closer and closer. But despite the seeming simplicity of the music, it is actually much more complex. Hans Zimmer, one of the greatest film composers of all time, says this about the score. Everybody goes, Jaws is just these two notes. It's not. There's this amazing orchestral symphonic piece that takes place, and it's just being triggered by these two notes. Hans is correct in the fact that the score for Jaws is a great orchestral piece. However, this was not something that was very common in the 1970s, making Williams' arrangement even more impressive. Another fantastic example, and arguably one of the best, that shows Williams' use of an orchestral score is that of Star Wars. The score is often credited with helping audiences rediscover the classical orchestral film score. George Lucas tasked Williams with an incredible feat, creating a score that matched the epicness of the plot. Williams definitely delivered, as he composed the most memorable theme songs in cinematic history. The most recognizable theme in the Star Wars saga is the main title, which is the intro song. When that first note erupts and the Star Wars logo hits the screen, you literally feel like you've been blasted into space, into a galaxy far, far away. It's that forceful.
Use the Force, Luke.
Without this song playing as you read the opening crawl, you would not feel as immersed into this sci-fi world or be prepared for the adventure that is about to take place. Without the main title song, there's no excitement or wonderment. These emotions are necessary to invoke in the audience, making the inclusion of this song integral. Another favorite theme from Star Wars is the Imperial March, or Darth Vader's theme. It is hard to imagine seeing Darth Vader walking around the Death Star without this song playing in the background. The song demands attention and obedience, just like Darth Vader himself. Another orchestral piece from Williams, this iconic theme song is perfectly fit for an iconic villain. You may notice that many of the songs in Williams' scores are called themes. This is because Williams was working with a technique called leitmotif, inspired by 19th century opera composer Richard Wagner. A leitmotif, or leading motif, is a musical theme that is used to identify characters and dramatic events. Although the leitmotif has been used in motion pictures before Williams started getting praise for it, many describe their use as overbearing or unnecessary. This is far from how you would describe Williams's leitmotifs. But not only did Williams employ the leitmotif and popularize it throughout the 1970s, he also changed its function. Typically, a leitmotif would start playing when a character or situation appears on screen. However, Williams would start playing a character's theme when they weren't yet on screen. Let's go back to Jaws and his theme. We hear the music start when we only see children playing in the water or a boat out on the ocean. However, due to the music, we know the shark is there. Not only did this use of leitmotif help build the suspense, but it was actually necessary to the production of the film. The robotic shark Steven Spielberg was using was constantly malfunctioning, forcing him to find creative ways to represent its presence. Additionally, if you look at the shark for too long, if you actually see its face and body, it is clearly fake. Therefore, it was a genius move to use the music to indicate that the shark was near. As audiences, we owe a great debt to John Williams for giving us the music that has affected our society on such a large and impressive scale. His influence on other film composers is also incredibly important, as it ensures the continuation of such amazing film scores for generations. Hans Zimmer says that, "It was John Williams that made me realize that film music can be of a quality and distinction that is as great as any of the classical composers that I grew up with." Overall, Williams' ability to define a character through sound is unbeatable. Jaws wouldn't be as terrifying, Indiana Jones wouldn't be as adventurous, and Superman wouldn't be as heroic if it weren't for the musical themes Williams created for each.
Easy, miss. I've got you.
You've got me! Who's got you?
I think the end of Steven Spielberg's speech to Williams, as he presented him with the AFI Life Achievement Award, is a perfect way to sum up his importance and profound impact.
John, you breathe belief into every film we have made. You take our movies, many of them about our most impossible dreams, and through your musical genius, you make them real and everlasting for billions and billions of people. So it is my honor to be up here tonight to say to you, my lifelong friend and my colleague, congratulations.
All right, thanks for watching this lesson. That's all for now, and I'll see you next time.